Hello, I'm Ron Strickland. This webcast is one of a series in which I'm presenting some brief lectures and commentaries on topics from the courses I teach in literature and cultural studies. This particular installment is one of a group on William Shakespeare's play, The Merchant of Venice. In another webcast, I've said some things about the political and economic conditions pertaining in 16th century Venice, and how Venice's status as a republican city-state, whose mercantile economy depended on international trade, set Venice apart from the traditional agrarian feudal political and economic systems that still pertained in much of the rest of Europe at the time. Now I want to say some things about the plot structure of the play. Shakespeare builds the play on the Roman New Comedy plot. It's a structure that he uses in many of his comedies, such as Midsummer Night's Dream, The Taming of the Shrew, and others. And he also uses elements of the structure in some of his tragedies, especially Romeo and Juliet. The conventional Roman New Comedy plot structure involves a young couple who want to get married. But there's a problem. One or more of the parents objects to the marriage. A household servant, or perhaps a sympathetic member of the older generation, will help the young lovers to elope or to marry in secret. Eventually, the truth will come out, and the parents will accept the marriage, however grudgingly. All's well that ends well. These plays are comedies, not just because they are funny, which they are, but because they stage and resolve an archetypal generational conflict. The young couple represent a threat, symbolically, to the existing social order. Young girls, at least, typically didn't get married without their parents' consent in the 16th century. But when all is done and the marriage has been accepted, order is restored, society can proceed in peace. The play opens with a scene that centers on a character called Antonio, a rich Venetian merchant. In fact, he's the merchant of the title of the play. Antonio is melancholy, and he can't quite tell us why. His young friend Bassanio arrives. Bassanio wants to borrow money so that he can travel to the court of Belmont, where resides a rich young heiress called Portia. If Bassanio can borrow the money to go to Belmont and win the hand of Portia, it will be a double triumph. Bassanio will be rich and well married to a beautiful young woman. As Bassanio describes his motives for courting the beloved Portia, he especially emphasizes that she is rich. She is very, very rich. So Bassanio proposes a romantic quest to get rich the old-fashioned way, by marrying a rich woman. Meanwhile, Antonio, whom I'm identifying as the sympathetic member of the older generation of the New Comedy plot structure, might at first appear to represent the potential obstacle to the union, because he is so reluctant. He's ambivalent about loaning the money. A further complication is that he will have to borrow the money to lend it again to Bassanio. That necessity leads them to Shylock, the moneylender. In some sense, in this schematic I'm drawing of the New Comedy plot structure, Shylock becomes a sort of an adjunct to Antonio, also, that is, a representative of the sympathetic member of the older generation, albeit that Shylock plays this part unwittingly and is the farthest thing from his intention. Act 1, Scene 2 brings us to Portia's court at Belmont. Portia and her maid Nerissa are discussing some of the suitors who have come to seek her hand in marriage. None of them are much to Portia's liking, but her choice is constrained in any event. Here we have the traditional obstacle of the New Comedy plot, That is, the parent determined to control the marriage of the child. This parent is very determined. In fact, Portia's parents are dead, and her father has devised a strategy to control her choice of a husband even from the grave. Shakespeare draws on an old folk tale of the three caskets, a tale that would have been known to him from a collection of tales called the Gesta Romanorum, a collection of moral allegories. In this story, a young person seeking to marry is presented with three small caskets, one made of gold, one made of silver, and one made of lead. The suitor must choose the right casket in order to be accepted. Well, the moral of the story is something like all that glitters is not gold or silver, or that a deeper, truer value is found in humble circumstances, something like that. In the ensuing action, a prince of Morocco arrives at Belmont, chooses the gold casket, and of course is rejected. Then a Spaniard comes and chooses the silver casket and is rejected. And finally, Bassanio arrives, and after some buildup of dramatic tension, chooses the lead casket and wins the hand of Portia, according to the rules set out by Portia's deceased father. This would effectively be the logical end of the traditional romantic new comedy love plot, along with a subplot involving the elopement of Shylock's daughter, Jessica, with a young Christian called Lorenzo. But Shakespeare has, in effect, left a dramatic thread hanging. That's the loan from Shylock to Antonio. The term of the loan has expired. Antonio has suffered a run of bad luck in his mercantile adventures, and he's unable to pay the debt. So Shylock is going to demand repayment in a form that seemed at first to be merely a joke. He'll demand a pound of Antonio's flesh. I'll take up this theme in another webcast. But in the meantime, if you have questions or comments, send me an email.